Shall we move on to Japan, Scott?
Yes, with The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. And in this we find Makoto, voiced by Riza Naka, who seems to be in most respects an ordinary teenage girl. She muddles through school adequately enough, plays baseball with her best friends, the dependable Kasuke and the more flighty Chaki. Mundanity continues until one day, while riding her bike, Makoto's brakes fail and contrive to engineer an unfortunate train-flesh interface that by rights should have killed her if she hadn't reflexively jumped back in time to that morning. On discovering this handy skill, at least after a short period of understandable shock and surprise, she uses these powers to, well, have a better, less death-filled day, mainly. Seeing as not dying is a low bar, she goes further, seeking to avoid pain and embarrassment to her friends and herself, while she attempts to engineer a better day for all of her friends, while avoiding the changes to the interpersonal relationship status quo as far as possible. As is usually the case when meddling with this sort of thing, changing one small event may lead to many unanticipated changes elsewhere that seems to continually hamper her efforts. Indeed, the whole time-travelling gimmick is little more than a hook to hang what is, for the most part, a melancholy exploration of friendships, love, and missed opportunities, as the dynamics of the main trio's friendship changes in various ways for various reasons. The take-home message seems to be that change is inevitable, and even if you could head back in time, you can't stop it marching right back on again. Now, I liked this film a lot a decade or so ago and haven't really thought about it all that much since. However, I'm happy to report that it holds up just as well on a second viewing. The characters are still all utterly charming, and the film has an endearing sense of understatement. Indeed, one of Makoto's main reasons for returning in time appears to be to prevent her sister from stealing her pudding. So,
also, because she, not to say that she's, wasteful of her ability to jump through time, but she seems to want to enjoy that pudding a good dozen times.
It's a nice pudding. So the characters all feel quite real and restrained, apart from a understandable but ill-advised ramping up of the cheese and saccharin levels towards the end of the film to attempt to give a dramatic emotional punch that feels a little bit out of keeping with the rest of the film. Also, whoever was given the job of animating tears needs to back off the drama just a smidgen, given how wildly out of place it looked in an otherwise beautifully animated and drawn piece of work. If it has an outright flaw, it's actually the time-travelling mechanism itself. While it's an inexplicable MacGuffin, it's fine, but the actual explanation for it is, well, a bit of a stretch and really quite dull to have explained to you. But for me at least, there's enough goodwill built into the hour and 20 odds before that occurs to excuse the last 10. As I thought about a decade or so ago, yes, a really great film from Madhouse, who were the studio responsible for the similarly excellent Metropolis and Perfect Blue, and also Wicked City, but they can't all be winners.
Gotta love that tentacle rape. Less said about Wicked City, the better, though, I think. Yeah, I don't actually have a lot to add to this, Scott, from what you've said. A decade ago, I think we must have covered it on our old podcast. I'm sure I remember talking about it.
I at the very least wrote a review of it, because that's what I cribbed quite heavily from in that little recap there.
Yes, I enjoyed it thoroughly then. I enjoy it thoroughly now. It's one of those time travel things that has something similar to... It's not quite the butterfly effect, because it's a bit less... distantly connected to the film.
Awful.
I mean the butterfly
Miserable.
effect, I suppose.
Disgusting.
I mean the butterfly effect as in the theory, not the terrible Ashton Kutcher vehicle. But thanks for bringing that back, because what I really needed to remember in this moment was Ashton Kutcher looking down at his stump arms.
Yeah.
And, whatever that attempt at acting was he did in that thing. The only good thing that came out of the butterfly effect was Ethan Suplee as the weird goth guy. Because I like Ethan Suplee a lot, and I just found that character ridiculous and funny. Not quite so detached as the idea of the butterfly effect. Again, not the Ashton Kutcher film. Let's just get that clear now. But the idea of consequences of even a small change to a person's life or to the way you interact with someone has so many knock-on effects. And I just think that's quite interesting. Some of these, in this film in particular, are quite extreme, The idea that swapping places with someone in the home economics classroom will lead to that person getting beaten up and then going mental with a fire extinguisher and nearly killing a teenage girl. That may be going a bit far.
Yeah.
But the idea that people's lives are interconnected and that you can't just... without thinking, do things, change people's lives without their consent.
Yeah.
And I just find that quite interesting because I think, yes, not to the degree that happens in this film. I think if this technology existed, you could affect so many people so easily without doing an awful lot.
Yeah.
And so therefore it just comes about the time travel is more just a way to show people, you know what, maybe you should really think about other people, and the effect you have in people's lives and things. I just think it's a nice sentiment.
In many ways, it's a sort of more general explanation of if you're optimizing for one thing, it's always going to affect anything else.
Yes.
It's going to be to the detriment of other things, and whether that's your own happiness at the expense of others or everyone else's happiness at the expense of yours, then it's a good way of... It's as broad a canvas to draw that on as any, and it does it quite well. It does help, I think, in this regard. The characters don't have any massive goals. They're not trying to change the course of history or anything like that. They're in any sort of grand, overarching way. Not dying, of course, I suppose, is a bit of a carrot rather than a stick.
I do like, though, the fact that the character is, I suppose, innocent is quite a good word, because she doesn't want to do anything like, make a buck in the stock market or kill someone or cause someone to fall in love with her. Although she does the opposite of that. She tries to avoid such a thing. She's just, because she's like, this sounds nice, I don't mean like, but like, she's kind of a frivolous high school girl. Like many people of both genders or any gender are in high school. People don't really think about things like, but she's using this power she has for such frivolous stuff. Like the pudding thing, and that kind of amuses me. She's got no malice in her, but she's got no great ambition either. It's like, well, I can jump through time. Well, I can have this breakfast twice. Like, I don't really fancy what we're having for dinner tonight. I want to go and have the dinner we had 2 nights ago again. That's kind of nice that she's used it for such silly things. But then again, it still explores the idea that, even something as simple as that can affect people's lives in ways you'd maybe not realise. But yeah, it's a charming film. It's really nicely animated. I could maybe do with a wee bit less of the kind of mopey high school teen romance stuff, but that's a fairly minor part of it. I'm not that bothered by that. But yeah, other than that, it's very much one I would recommend.
Yes, which is the time. It's good that we're getting a fairly decent hit rate of this so far, but will it continue?